This is Talking My Walking. I am Rodrigo Ribeiro, just another voice in the wilderness. Today I want to talk about the literacy myth. This is not about the book by Harvey Graff, which I have never read, so this is something that it's nothing to do, it's just my view. This is my view, my analysis, my experience, um, that it just makes me think that literacy by itself is is not enough for cultural and political liberation, and I'm sure about that. This is something that I'm totally sure, because there are many facts, many empirical facts that do prove that literacy is not the key to make us more free, and for many reasons. Um, so it's almost every day. If you are in social media and maybe in other places as well, uh, I don't watch legacy media. I don't read the newspapers. I, I mean, nothing of that sort. Okay, so I'm mostly on X. Not because I'm a fan of Elon Musk, but that's that's what it is. And it's always people at emphasizing the need to read, emphasizing the importance, the of literacy, and I'm not one of those right wingers that doesn't that thinks or believes that literacy is just we don't need that at all, and it's not the point. The point is not because we don't know we need knowledge. So, but knowledge by itself, intellectual knowledge by itself, doesn't or let me put it another, the accumulation of intellectual knowledge, scientific based, um, it's not enough. And by the way, it is very difficult. I mean, it is impossible. It doesn't matter how smart we are. Since we are young children, we are exposed to a web of deceit. Historical facts are distorted. This is the problem of little distortions, little lies, little misinterpretations in a cumulative process. Since we are, this is perception management. Since we are little kids, that we build a wrong interpretation of reality, of historical facts, of sociocultural facts, of how we perceive people and nature, and how we build relations. And this is more important than literacy itself. By the way, as I said, we become not ignorant in the sense that we lack the knowledge, but we become a much more nasty thing, that we accumulate a distorted knowledge about the reality and about ourselves And our identity, that's how we build a psychosociocultural identity that in so many aspects is fake, is distorted, is incorrect. So the stories we can read the best classics, the more important philosophers, do whatever it doesn't matter. Does it make a difference? No, it can make the difference. But the problem is not what you. The problem is also what we read. Okay, that is also a problem. But besides that, it's the problem is how we are educated, indoctrinated. Because as I often say, we cannot escape indoctrination and instrumentalization. Therefore, we need to understand first and foremost that we are domesticated animals that cannot escape indoctrination and instrumentalization. Therefore, this is what we need to know to become aware, in order to understand that knowledge is not something that sits somewhere that is in a shelf somewhere in our neural networks. Knowledge is part of a living organism. It's part of our perception. It influences how we perceive, how we behave, how we interact with other people, how we interact with nature and with history and with everything. So if we want to understand, the point is to understand what is the real nature of the human condition, of the sociocultural human condition, and how can we, since we are children, have an educational process. But by the way, by an educational process, we need to understand that we cannot separate, compartmentalize the sociocultural reality separated from the socio-economic political reality, because they both reinforce each other. So therefore, this is part of the instrumentalization process that has an objective, and the objective is to prepare us to fit, to adapt, to comply with an economic and political and social reality. So the point is not exactly, the point is to understanding, the basic point is to understanding what is and how it works, the sociocultural condition, nature of the human condition, what it really is and how it works. And then have an educational or a pedagogic system for truly cultural liberation, with more or less literacy. Literacy is important, but it doesn't make a difference unless it's part of an holistic process of conscious, transformative process, a culture of true liberation that makes us social beings, sociocultural beings, less or more immune to being manipulated, to being instrumentalized in the wrong, for the purpose of serving as useful tools and as cannon fodder of the powers that be, of the higher powers. So those that are always praying about literacy need to understand this. By the way, who needs to understand this is us, all of us, or we will be always under the idea that if we read just some books, or if you watch some movies, or if you attend some lectures, we will be free thinkers. That does not how reality works. That's not how our brains work. So this is to me why um, you know um, that the José Saramago was a Portuguese writer, a communist. He won the Literature Nobel Prize. I don't remember which year was it. It is said that the wisest man he knew, okay, was his grandfather, from a place, from the place of its origin. It's close to Golgan, a place called Golgan, but I don't remember now the name of the place, okay? And he was the wisest man, an illiterate man that didn't know how to read or to write, you know? So literacy by itself, it's like I say and I repeat it again and again. I don't care if people don't want to listen to my words, or because I'm a nobody, because nobody knows me from anywhere or whatever. Intellectual understanding by itself doesn't change anything unless we go through a process of conscious, of a process of conscious transformative process that we need to engage, because we know many things intellectually and doesn't change anything in our lives because we do not engage. It's just like the critical thinking, or the ability to have critical analysis. We all have those skills. They are inherent to us, to our nature. They are innate. But if we do not train them in proper ways, do we think that we can? This is not about literacy again. It is about training a skill if we want to use it in a proper way, instead of believing that just because we have a lot of knowledge or we read a lot of books, we are immediately critical thinkers. No, we are not. We become critical thinkers if we train ourselves in order to be good analysts of the reality and of ourselves. And to know about that is important. To know about the nature of the human condition, the socio-cultural nature of the human condition. And not just, again, not by reading papers. I mean, it's not because it's not important to know, have I mean, if we study cognitive linguistics or social psychology or behavioral psychology, or whatever kind of neuroscience, social neuroscience, or all these kind of disciplines about the human, about the cognitive systems of the human of human beings, is not important. Can you not learn a lot with? Yes, you can. But you also need to understand that so many papers, so many theories are so many papers are just based on models that are far from the reality, because we all, nothing starts any analysis uses ideas, follows patterns. Where those patterns come from, where those premises, those assumptions, they come from where? So the point is that we need to understand this. This is more important if we want to build a society, a more humane society, and what I call ecological holistic civilization, not only ecological and still capitalist, but a society that respects, and a civilization that truly respects the basics of our socio-cultural condition and builds on that, not against it, because that's exactly what we have. That's why we live in the age of technoscientism and technofixism. That is supposed that science and technology, again, this particular form of literacy, which are supposed to be superior because it's supposed to be fact based and blah blah blah, and nevertheless, it's a theology, is a cult, is the idea that through technology and science that's the only way to save humanity. No, to save humanity is to understand what humanity is, first and foremost, with or without science-based knowledge. Not all science-based knowledge is the best knowledge. The best knowledge is that we really see what's in front of us. Okay? Instead of using the lenses that others give us. This is not because it's not important, because you can say, okay, I always say that we, human beings, are bits and pieces of other people's knowledge and experience. That's what we are. So our identity, our perspectives, our perceptions, they have always elements of other people's knowledge and experience. That's why it is important how we influence each other, and how it's important to understand how we influence each other, and how we can only know the world out there, and the way we build relations is based on these influences. But if we only see through the lenses that we always have to cite, always have to quote people, it's not because I don't find it important. I use lots of quotes, but it's not because. But one thing is to use those quotes and to learn with others. Another thing, that's what most of us do, is to see reality through the lenses of others, because we are trained to be followers because of our the idolatry of celebrities, authorities, saviors, heroes, leaders. This is absolutely wrong. And then this is the paradox that we are individualistic because we are this hedonistic individualism, that's the pursuit of self-interest and the pursuit of hedonistic pleasure. I mean, to look for um, um, pleasure, almost. That's what we are supposed to. That's what we confuse with happiness, the immediate reward. You know, in ice cream, in so many consumer products, that we look for experiences that give us immediate pleasure, that satisfy our desires. Most of them by exploiting needs that we don't have. There is no need there. There's artificially created to exploit our weaknesses. So we I mean, we do give too much credit to people that don't deserve it because they are authorities. You know, you perceive them as authorities, as leaders, as saviors, as heroes. And we confuse, because we are led to confuse reality with fiction. Sometimes we don't know anymore what is reality or what's part of a movie or eventually of a book. Because everything ends up to be stories. And the dividing line between reality and fiction is blurred. And all these things this is happening in our brains, okay, in our subconscious minds, and for the most part we know nothing about it because we don't reflect on it. We don't train ourselves, our critical and analytical skills, also self-analytical skills, that are essential to build a sane, a healthy individualism, the consciousness of being, not just the consciousness of consuming, the consciousness of reacting, of being. Because that's our pulsions, our impulsive. This is what is that is what is these drives that are exploited to the fullest. That's why we don't have we have an attention span of a fly probably, and all the rest. We live in a fragmented reality. We don't we don't we do not care to build a comprehensive, holistic frame. We don't understand language framing, how it works, how it is used to manipulate perception. And it doesn't matter, honestly, it doesn't matter. You can read lots of books. You can be pretty sophisticated, talking about hearts and music and know this author and this, and all this kind of bourgeois sophistication, that you are a cosmopolitan person that you always can have references. You can always say nice lines, and that is rubbish. Honestly, is rubbish. And those of us, the plebeians, that we need to wake up for this, because we all are, or we all have our individuality. We all pursue our self-interest to some extent. But what we are victims of is the instrumentalization of our individuality, not for the benefit of us, but for the exploitation, for the fracturing, for the division, social division of the plebeian class. So, this is not about literacy, it's about being conscious of which class do you belong, of understanding a class system, of understanding the type of society and civilization where we live, of having a diagnosis of the problems, of the roots of the problems, and work on them to find solutions. Instead of buying into nationalistic nationalistic demagoguery, and try and following conspiracy theorists with, I know that okay, conspiracies are real for sure, but one thing is conspiracies, another thing is conspiracies hypotheses, and conspiracies theories, and conspiracies facts. We cannot mix. It's totally different things. So we need to be, if we do not go through this conscious transformative process, how can we unite and organize and build a movement, an internationalist movement for change, for real change, for a new paradigm, civilizational paradigm, and a new political economy paradigm, and all the rest that is needed for the sake of humanity and for the respect for nature. For once we start to understand that humanity is part of the web of life, and there is no culture versus nature, it is culture in the web of nature. And this needs to be deeply felt. Not only that we understand it intellectually, but we need to feel it deeply. That needs to become part of us as part of a conscious process. And I don't know what else to say. I always have a lot to say, because things. It's a kind of. I would like people to think about this as human beings, not as authorities in anything or lecturing others. It's just because we share our humanity, and our humanity is full of mistakes, full of flaws, and therefore we need each other. We complement each other. Okay, We are not better than each other. We're not superior. We are not authorities. We are not this or that. We have different experience, different opportunities. We live in a system that thrives on division. This is a pyramid scheme what we need to understand about our society, our societal system. It's a pyramid scheme as an extractivist to extract life from us, to really transform us into tools of imperialism. And then they play these games of individuality and freedom and democracy and all this intellectual and cultural and identity games to confuse us, to make us believe that we are what we actually are not, because we don't have those freedoms. You know, you have countries and you have citizens that are enslaved by debt intentionally in a system that uses usury, which used to be a sin and illegal, and now since they call it interest, we believe that all debts and interest are fair and are moral. And this is a lie. I mean, this everything that I'm saying here, you might say this guy just says things that comes from this today, jumps all over and blah blah blah. If you don't see the interconnections, if you don't understand them, if you don't feel them deep inside you, how they are destroying your humanity, our humanity, then you don't understand that literacy by itself doesn't change anything. Okay? Thank you for listening. If anyone really follows to the end, I'm really thankful, and I will be back soon. Thank you for listening.